How I got interested in resiliency was because I had so many women sitting before me, telling me about all of their horrible events in their life. And I would say, well, what did you learn from it? Nothing. Okay, well, we definitely need to go through this and get some information from why we went through things. And I began to realize that even if we have really hard experiences, we don't actually build resiliency until we do the cleanup work, right? And so the next time we have a really hard experience, we're actually using pre-built resiliency, not the resiliency that we think we're getting in that hard moment. And so I really began to shift my mindset and really began to look at what mindfulness can do for us. I always ask this question, and I don't have anyone yet at this point who has raised their hands, but maybe it's here. How many of you have had a perfect life? Okay, so no rare unicorns in the room. Okay, good. Right? I mean, none of us have perfect lives. We have situations, we have hard moments, and that's just the way it is, because life is filled with challenges. And just like I said, we use our resiliency, our strength from the past once we have really examined. And that's what I want to talk about right now, because most people, unless we're, in a group like this, who practice mindfulness all the time, they tend to live through the mindset of things are really great, but I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I know I have lived that way. Has anybody else? Yeah, right? I go, oh, this is so good. Something terrible is probably going to happen. And we have to get out of that mindset, obviously. So we can mindfully build resiliency so that when we have hard experiences, death, medical crisis, global pandemics, right? Financial situations, food shortages, that we can actually move through them without being taken down. And that's so important. We have to really look at these things. And I can't talk about resiliency without talking about trauma, right? Because that's what we tend to think of. Well, I built resiliency because I went through something really hard. Most people think that way. We have a new definition of trauma, and this is really important. And I want to talk about that really quickly before we get into how we mindfully build every single day. We used to think that trauma was that big, hard experience, the death, the car accident, that thing that really dysregulates our emotions. But now we know that trauma is anything for any reason, and it's not necessarily the event. It's how we connect to the event, which made sense to me when I went back and started looking at, well, how did I build my strength? It was all about the way I connected to that moment. And this is where mindfulness really comes into play. And again, trauma is anything for any reason. I often tell people who come and see me, it's not so much about what is happening to you, it's about what's happening through you. And that's where mindfulness really comes into play. So your brain, its number one job is to keep you safe. That's its job, right? We are always looking for hard experiences. Think about, oh, I'm looking for the other shoe to drop, right? We're on this path all the time looking for what's going to keep me emotionally safe, mentally safe. Am I going to have to use that past resiliency? What do I need, want, and desire? I like to think of the brain as your supercomputer. It is really helping us look for what we need and want and keeping us away from really hard things. So I like to say that the supercomputer likes to use its anti-Norton virus to make sure that the hard things don't come in. When we talk about resiliency, I want you to realize that even if you've had a life that is not perfect, that, some people will say, well, I've had such hard experiences. I just, wish that life was a little bit easier, and I'm just not that resilient. Well, resiliency is not a trait, it's a behavior, which means that even if you don't feel resilient right now, everyone has the opportunity to build more resiliency. And that's where I love to teach so much, because resiliency really is an inner battery, right? When our batteries are full, we can turn the channel really easy, right? It's easy to be able to move through anything. But when our battery is really low, we're sluggish, We're making really hard decisions. We're doing things that don't work for us. So resiliency is our ability to quickly recover from anything, right? So we can use other words like flexibility, strength, sturdiness, toughness. And this is where our mindfulness practice comes into place. Again, it's that inner battery that can help us feel better. When we talk about hard things, I often hear a couple words, and it is, I am stuck. How many people have ever felt that way in their lives? Yeah. Even a clap. I'm with you, right? We all feel that way, but we can build it, we can change it, and we don't have to be stuck. So when we're building daily resiliency, we look for three things. We have to have three things in place, and then I'm going to give you some practices, and then I'm going to teach you a quick breath technique that you can use anywhere, and it is very important. So the first thing that we have to do is look at our patterns. We have to look at it in the 5 things, the 5 governing places in our lives. So mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, and financial, right? So we have to look at our patterns if we're going to build daily resiliency. 2, we have to look at our habits and our disciplines. I once said to somebody, I can tell you with exact certainty how you will handle a situation based on your daily habits. And they said, no, you can't. It's not possible. I said, well, tell me about your daily routine, right? Well, I go to work, I get up, I get the kids off, out the door, go to work, I come home, and I sit down on the couch. I just kind of wait for the day to end. I'm like, okay, that's most people, right? That's most Americans at this point. I said, okay, so you're not engaging with anybody else? No. You're not doing any physical activity? No. No spiritual activities? No. Anything that could help you in a moment of shocking change? No. So, do you think that I can tell you with exact certainty that your habits are not going to be able to get you through a hard moment? Oh. So if we engage in our lives and change our habits, change our disciplines, guess what? We are more resilient. Because again, we think that trauma is the only way that we have the ability to get through anything, and that's not the truth. We have the ability to daily check in and change the story that we tell ourselves. The third thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the first 2 awarenesses and put them into action through our goals, actions, and intentions. So the first way that you can build daily resiliency is to build it into your calendar. A personal quote that I live by is by the late Stephen Covey, and he says, don't prioritize your schedule, schedule your priorities. I live by that, right? So what you can do is create mindful blocks in the natural parts of your day. That's the morning, your lunch, and your evening times. And what we want to do here is we want to check in with our thought process. How many of us are in that stage of our lives where things kind of disrupt us a little bit and it tanks us all the way down for the rest of the day, right? I had this hard moment. Oh, that's it. The rest of the day was awful. Well, does that help your battery go up where you know that you can handle the next moment? Or does it decrease your battery and then everything from there falls apart? We're going to talk about a quick check-in for your thought process in just a moment, but I want you to think about scheduling resiliency, checking in. How do I feel? How has the day been? Am I good? Are things good or are things bad? And if you check in and you know that things aren't good, guess what? I can clean it up right then. Because remember, I told you that resiliency is used once we look at what's going on and how we feel so that we can take the strength of what we need out of that to use it for the next thing, right? So that's very important. We want to look at everything that's not working for us in real time. So I told you I'd give you a quick little exercise. If you're having a bad day, something terrible has happened, I want you to stop and check in with yourself. Practice is very simple, and this is a thought behavior that we can really put into place. So we're going to talk to our supercomputer. What are we feeling? Well, what's causing me stress, right? Let's say the thought comes to our mind, I am stressed. Let's break it down. We're going to remove the emotion. Anytime that you are talking to yourself or someone else and you use the words I feel, you're using emotion. And emotions are not facts. They never have been, they never will be. And the reason why is my connection to stress is different than your connection to stress. My connection to the definition of stress is different than yours. And so remove the I feel, and I want you to get down to just the facts. Well, I'm stressed because my schedule is overloaded. Well, is that something that I did to myself? Probably, right? And so get down to this happened, and then this happened, and then that occurred. And then if you want to bring the emotions back in, you're more than welcome to. But I want you to get down to just the facts, because what happens is you become very clear about what you're feeling. And when you become very clear about the thoughts and the feelings, you can move into a new action. And every time that we're talking about building resiliency, it is an action. So it's very important. Always ask yourself this last question, and it is this thought true? That will also help you build daily resiliency. So I told you that we were going to do another thing, which is review our habits and our disciplines. Most people live their lives on autopilot. How many of us have gotten into the car and driven to the store, to work, and have no idea how we got there? I've done it, right? As mindful as I am, as I practice, as I teach, I have done it, and I think, oh my gosh, that is so scary. But we all do it, right? And so we have to begin to really look at our daily habits. Are we going to work? Are we not scheduling that time to check in? Are we not practicing anything that helps us physically? Are we not engaging in some mindfulness? What is it, right? What are we doing? And so if we look at our habits and our disciplines, we can start doing the opposite. This feels very counterintuitive to a lot of people. And it's something that I really or encourage you to engage in. So if you are going home after work and I'm so tired, well, what's the opposite of that? Is there something that you can do that may be 10 minutes, long, that will help increase that energy? And when you tell your brain, the supercomputer, wow, you know what, I was tired, but I actually went out and took that 10, 20-minute walk. Wow, I really can do this. Whether you realize that or not, that is a resilience-building exercise, right? Because you're telling your brain, I couldn't do this, but look at me, I did. And that's really important. So we have to get out of autopilot, stop engaging in the unhelpful behaviors, and that's really simple to say, right? Well, just stop doing it, you'll be fine. That doesn't really work that way, right? So we begin to look at that daily schedule again and say, what did I spend my time on? What worked in my life? What didn't? And we begin to use the opposite. This is why we build on these behaviors, and we're looking for the positive outlets. And then 3 is action. So I don't know how familiar you are with cognitive behavioral therapy, but the base of it is that we really drive our lives through our thoughts. And the lifespan of a thought is the thought comes in, I feel broken. Our emotional body rises, and then it drives us into action. And an action can just be another thought. Yep, you sure are, you're broken. And then that internal battery goes down, and there is no resiliency. Our resiliency is built in movement in our choices by identifying what works for us and what doesn't. Again, going back to that schedule, going back into looking at our habits. And so what we want to do is tell the supercomputer, I have a new habit. I have a new ability to do something. I've got this. How many people tell themselves that? I know like when I'm running and I'm trying to go up a hill, I'm like, I got this. No, I don't got this, right? But we want to tell our computer that we can change our habits. So some of the supporting actions that you can do to really build daily resiliency and to tell the supercomputer you do have this is to look at some of these exercises. The first one is to recognize the signs of your stress and then remove it. Right? So if you're overscheduling yourself, guess what? I'm not going to overschedule myself anymore. I'm going to be more mindful about how I feel and what I'm doing. And really get into a place that you're building resiliency by saying, I don't have a to-do list that's 500 pages long. Instead, I have a to-do list that's 5 workable pieces, And now I know that I have the ability to show up for myself. That builds resiliency. So strength, strengthening the relaxation response. I'm going to teach you a quick breathing exercise in a minute, but if you're not practicing at least 10 to 20 minutes every single day, whether it's meditation, mindfulness, or breathing, you're really cheating the supercomputer out of a habit that can help you in hard times. So definitely do that. Meditation is a big one. I teach meditation. You can go to Calm, Insight Timer, Headspace. Those are great apps to use that are right there on your phone. I know you have that supercomputer in your pocket, right? So definitely do that. Those are great pieces to use. Engage in a mindful activity, right? So what can you do? Of course, those things that I just mentioned are mindful activities. But a mindful activity may just be stopping in the middle of the day and saying, how do I feel? It may just be sitting in silence for 10 minutes. What is it that you can do that's readily available to you and easy? Not asking you to go and buy all the things or to get a membership somewhere. I'm asking you to take 5 minutes. If I'm in my car by myself, guess what? I'm quiet. Because it's about the only time in my day that I have, right? So what can I do to give myself just a few minutes to build a new activity? You should ask yourself that. Build your physical health. We're here, we're talking about eating the right foods, about moving our bodies, but a lot of times we'll put our mindset into doing these things, but we fail to really think about, am I sleeping enough? Am I breathing properly? What small changes can I make to definitely invest in myself? Where if something horrible happens, I've been told that, I've got this really bad diagnosis. Well, I can move through it because I have already built my resiliency battery up. I'm not going to connect to this event in such a horrible way because I know that I have the power of choice. And that's why we build resiliency. Increase your positive emotions every day. How many of you have actually stopped at one point or another and said, what brings me joy? Yeah, see, I love this clap. It's good. Right? I love that. And a lot of people don't do it. But this is a great way to build resiliency in your life, is to stop and say, I know what brings me joy. I know what brings me happiness, and I know what I'm grateful for. Because what happens when the hard things happen is that we can go, I know that I have a community. I know that I can go and turn on this great comedian that I love and engage in humor. I know that I can go out for my run or my walk or my yoga class, and I'm going to not only have community, but I have the ability to emotionally move all of these things that are happening, and I can feel better. This is why we build this. And then I want you to counter your unhelpful thinking. So just in the beginning, I was telling you could break down to just the facts of any situation. But a lot of times when we have hard things happen, we immediately fall into the negative. And there's a reason why that occurs. Because the supercomputer is looking for the hard things. It's looking for all of the negative things to keep you safe and to make sure that you don't fall into any pitfalls. And so when that happens, we're naturally going to fall off into, I hate this, this sucks, I don't want this, why is this happening, right? And so we have to start thinking about the daily thoughts. If we're telling ourselves that daily, we have no resiliency in our tank ready to use when the hard things happen. So, breath work. I know we just had that beautiful meditation, and I teach meditation. It is something that I think everyone should do. But when we use our breath, something happens, and it's called coherence. And coherence is the alignment between the heart, the mind, the emotions, and the physical systems of the body. So we want to stay in coherence. In Heart Math, if you're not familiar with it, it's a beautiful study about how our physical systems really get out of alignment when we have hard moments. And we all know that, right? So when we're nervous, our hands shake. When we have a shocking phone call, our heart will drum, right? We know what it feels like to have that shock to the system. And we have this beautiful system within us that's free and readily available, and it's your breath. And it is the only natural way to come back into coherence. So I'd love to teach you a coherence exercise. It is a Heart Math Institute practice that I love to teach. I'm going to teach two things. One, being just the actual quick practice, and then two, the shift and lift. And this takes just literally seconds. So step one, if you'd like to, is just place your hand over your heart and take a deep breath. You don't have to close your eyes if you don't want to, but just continue to breathe, and I want you to flow with that breath. And I want you to think about the breath coming in and out of your heart center. When I teach this, and I have people that have a hard time visualizing this, I want you to think of your favorite color. And think of that as a ribbon coming in and out of your heart. So just deep breath in and out. What's happening is your nervous system begins to say, oh, I can just slow down for just a moment. That's all there is to it. There's nothing more than staying connected, heart, mind, body, soul, and just breathing. And you do this for as long as needed. And then shift and lift takes that just another step further, and you can activate the brain, the supercomputer, to really pull in gratitude, genuine connection for the stop, for that moment, to listen to your body and saying, I'm building and using my resiliency. And so continue to do that. Breathe. Think about how grateful you are for the moment. Gratitude is one of the best resiliency builders there is. So definitely think about that and do that. If you have a hard time, think about other people that you love and have deep appreciation for. And then the third step is to radiate that energy. That's it. The truth is, you are already resilient. You are. You build resilience every single day. So continue to use the behavior and add to it. And that's it. You are resilient.